I was at Alabama 32 years. I can honestly and truthfully say I don't think I had a better friend. Had a lot of friends, had some enemies. I don't think I ever had a better friend than Bill Curry. He was a good football coach. He was a terrific person. He was a guy who went through turbulent times, but did great. And I'm just tickled to death to continue to call him a friend. I hope he's doing okay. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Went. The feeling is mutual. I remember the day I got to Alabama, and to say that it was controversial would be the understatement of the century. And you were right there, and you were right there all day, every day. So that's what friends do for each other. And so it was mutual, and we got lucky, and I'm grateful for you.
Well, first I want to
Barry.
Thank you, Coach.
I want to congratulate you for the Hall of Fame honor for the Senior Bowl. That's a great honor. A lot of guys that played in that bowl game or in that contest over the years.
Yeah, I was shocked because there are an awful lot of outstanding players. Gosh, most of the players that are drafted are going to play in the NFL. Used to play in the Senior Bowl. Now, some of the big names don't play because their agents are afraid of injury or something like that. If they don't think that they need to play. But when I came along, I was a 20th round draft choice, and I was so excited to be going down there that I could hardly stand it. It was just a wonderful week for me, and so I was surprised and thrilled to get to go back for that event.
Barry?
Coach, hey, this is Barry. I want to ask you, does the playoff, I want to get your opinion on it. Is it good for college football, or has it hurt the bowls, and does it hurt coaches now because, you know, your fan base, everybody expects you to go to the playoff? I know you've only had it 2 years. Just kind of talk about your feelings, and is for the right number and how they do it, is it the right way?
Wow, it's such a complicated thing. I'm always looking at it from the standpoint of the students. And if you're talking about the student body, it's wonderful because it's fun and because you get to pull for your team and pray they get into playoffs and then pray that they win this one and the next one and the next one. If you're talking about the student athletes, the kids that have got to play, then it's a nightmare because the number of scholarships has not been increased, but the number of games has been drastically increased. We used to play 10 games, and maybe you go to a bowl game. And if you did go to a bowl game, it was a month after your season, so you had a chance to get healed up. Now, we still have 85 scholarships, and you might play 14, 15 games. I don't know if anybody ends up having to play 15, but with the conference championships, I really hadn't counted. But you could end up playing 14 games. You still only have 85 scholarships. So let's just say if I'm the offensive line coach of the Green Bay Packers and I lose 2 centers, all I do is call another guy because I got folks sitting around the country that know our system, and we just sign another center, and we come in and we take 2 or 3 days teaching the snap count, and we can play. In college, if you lose your 2 or 3 centers, you can't play. You don't have anybody else because you've run out of bodies.
Right.
So I'm just picking one position that has a lot to do with the quarterback's success. So you could run across all the positions and say the same thing. If you're looking at it from generating dollars, it's a bonanza. It's a great success. But where are those dollars going? Yes, you know where they're going. So it's complicated, and if I'm looking at it from the standpoint of caring about the players, it's a tough deal.
Yeah, Dad.
Bill, and you may want to comment on this, you may not, but the situations with the brain injuries, or however you want to say it, in the NFL, I noticed where Kenny Stabler's wife filed a lawsuit yesterday, and it's a complicated deal, I assume, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but it's a subject that, you know, people are talking about, and I don't know the real answer. Is there anything you could say about that?
Yeah, I can say a lot. I had many concussions, and some of them were severe. And my wife, every time I forget a phone number, I panic. And she says, "Oh, you're not any dumber than you were when you were 20 years old." I mean, forget about it. But it's real. I got great friends. John Mackey is no longer alive. Larry Morris is no longer alive. Those are two guys that were all pros, and Mackey's in the NFL Hall of Fame. And they wouldn't have died that young if this brain damage thing had not been real. There is substantial scientific documentation now. On the other hand, when we were coming along, I don't blame the coaches or the trainers or the doctors because they put us back out there. They didn't know. Medical science didn't know that you shouldn't go back on the field if you had a concussion 2 nights before. They didn't understand the ramifications. And now that they have the baseline, your baseline vitals on your body, I mean, the things that can be tested are incredible, how detailed they are. And when they don't come back normal, you don't go back on the field. So their lives are being saved every day now, not just in football, but in all sports, because they don't let the kids go back out there. But with us, they didn't know. So I don't blame anybody for our generation, but I do know that there has been damage, and I don't blame any of the wives of deceased players or any of the players that are in trouble. I don't blame them at all for filing suit.
On the targeting rule, when a guy hits helmet to helmet, should a guy be thrown out of the game for one, or should they get one personal foul, and then, because, a lot of times you're coming, you know better than we do, you're coming full speed. I mean, it's not as easy to hit the guy where you're supposed to hit him. Should a guy get ejected for one targeting call, or should he get a personal foul and then he get ejected for the second?
Well, you're talking about changing a culture here, and I think you got to give the players a little time, just to get used to the idea. If you're Ronnie Lott, remember the safety, Ronnie Lott, the 49ers. He knocked people out every week. You remember the name Dick Butkus?
Oh, sure, I do.
He knocked people out every week. So you're trying to change, and their players, they may not be as good as Lott or Butkus, but they're great players now, and they've been knocking people out for a long time. So if you say one time and you're gone from the game, I don't think you're giving them a chance to adjust and to learn. Now you got to keep your head up, tackle with your shoulder, put the guy on the ground without trying to run through his sternum or his face mask with your face mask. So I think it definitely should be more than one, but I do think the rules changes, and I'll say the same thing I said a minute ago. I think they're changing lives, and saving lives, because guys are being held out and guys are being ejected from the game. You want to get an NFL player's attention, you threaten him with kicking him out of the game. He will pay attention. He will learn to change.
Bill, on both sides of the football, is in every sport, things change. I would assume, and this is for the question for you to answer it, I guess the offensive side maybe has changed more than the defensive side. Maybe I'm wrong. But as the years go by, the coaches play in a different way. Philosophies are different. Kind of interesting, isn't it?
Well, it's fascinating, and it's hard to keep up with, even if you're in coaching. I tried to go back into coaching at Georgia State, and sometimes it felt overwhelming, and I'm not proud of that. I'm just confessing that it had changed so much, and I had been an analyst right up until that time, so I kind of watched it progress. But when we talk about changes now, everything from not just getting in the shotgun, because Homer Smith introduced that to us at Alabama and did a phenomenal job against my better judgment. David Smith and Roger Schultz had that thing down so well, and it really ended up helping us. That's an example of what I'm talking about. There's some kind of drastic change every season. Somebody comes up with a new idea. Chip Kelly comes up with a new wrinkle for an offense. And Nick Saban, you think, oh man, you got to spread it out and throw it all over the field. And yet Saban somehow blends that and does it just enough. But in the final analysis, they're going to line up in the equivalent of 2 tight ends, and they're going to knock you off the ball and whip you in order to win the game. And maybe that's the ideal. I think it is, if you can get those kinds of players. But it is changing so fast, and it is fascinating to try to keep up with it. I wish I could tell you that I'm good at it. I'm not.
Bill, I was reading some articles about you. I went through, and there was, I guess you were on a show, maybe last year's article in Birmingham, about how shocked you were when you got the Alabama job over Bobby Bowden. Kind of tell that story, kind of how all that went down, and then when Alabama actually offered you the job.
Well, I don't like to talk about those things because I wasn't on the selection committee, obviously. I just went to the selection committee. I told the truth, and they made a decision. I was surprised because I have such a high regard for Bobby. And that's really all I said. When I heard Bobby was in the running, I just said, well, that's the end of it. I'm going back to my job at Tech, and that's fine. And I was surprised when they made the decision, but that's all it was. I just have such high regard for Bobby Bowden. He's been a great friend for a long, long time, and we hired Tommy Bowden on our staff from the very beginning at Alabama.
You know, Jim Harbaugh, I never pronounced his name right, but at Michigan is gone through these satellite camps, and I don't like that much, but I don't know if you've kept up with that at all since you I don't like that. I think you need to stay home and recruit your area and get a guy in Ohio if you can, if you're coaching in Alabama or Florida, but that's too much on the coaches, I think.
Well, you might have noticed that in the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame, Steve Hutchinson was inducted last Saturday. He's going to be inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame, too, I guarantee you. A great football player. Well, when I started as an analyst at ESPN, it was 1997, and Hutchinson was a redshirt freshman offensive guard. And I got in trouble with ESPN because I picked him as the outstanding player of the first game. They said, that's not up to you, Curry, to decide who's the best player. I said, well, go check the film, and you tell me who was the best player. This guy's an offensive guard. He's the best player on the field, and he's a redshirt freshman. He's at Michigan. Guess where he's from? He's from Fort Lauderdale. So you can't tell Michigan went, but they got to recruit in the Midwest.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
They're going to recruit anywhere they want to.
Yeah, you're right.
They always have. Go tell Bo Schembechler he can't go down south. Yeah, right. So, I mean, maybe it would be more fair and more and easier and more economically feasible to restrict recruiting areas. That ain't going to happen.
I want to ask, this is for both of you guys. You know, I heard Roy Williams say Dean Smith brought him in and said, hey, you know, make sure you're ready. I retire too early at 66. You know, you guys have coached all your life. When you get out, maybe get out on emotion. It seems like everybody that gets out, maybe 66 is early, late, I don't know, but it seems like they miss it. How do you really know when it is time to walk away, and how difficult is that? That's really for both of you guys.
Bill?
That's impossible to say for somebody else.
Yeah, it
and
is.
It's almost impossible to say for yourself.
Yeah, it is.
Carolyn Curry gets disgusted with me because I sit there and get teary-eyed because I want to play.
Yeah.
I want to play in the game. That would be hilarious. That would last one play, and then y'all could get the stretcher. I mean, in my heart of hearts, I'd love to go back out there and see if I could block Buck Buchanan, but that's just so far removed that we can laugh about it. But when it's coaching and you've got all those years in, I think of a guy like Bill Snyder at Kansas State who tried to retire and then came back.
Yeah.
And heck, he's been very effective in his 70s. So I think it's very much an individual thing. Tom Osborne shocked me one day. He was real nice to me when I was a young head coach, and he was at Nebraska. And I called him about something when I was at ESPN, and one of his first remarks was, I retired too early. It shocked me. So I think a lot of guys feel that way.
Well, Bill, we appreciate. How's Carolyn and the family? Where is the family?
Carolyn's great. The family is spread around. Our daughter, Kristen, is now Dr. Kristen Hunter. She's head of the English department at Westminster High School in Atlanta.
Right.
Bill Curry Jr., he and his wife, Kristen has two girls, 13 and 10. Bill Curry Jr. and his wife, Kelly, have 5 boys, and they live in Charlotte, Virginia, where Billy went to school, and they love it. And they're all doing great. Thanks for asking.
Well, We appreciate you being on, Bill. I wish you luck. Maybe I'll get over to Atlanta, run into you, and let you take me to dinner.
I'll take you to dinner anytime, Will.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
Anything you want to over here. We got good restaurants.
All right. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Coach. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.